Hey, Slick Talkers, thank you so much for tuning into this podcast. And I know that if you love this show, you'll also love my morning show called Good Morning Hospitality with my co hosts Michael Golden and Brandy Canali, as we spend 30 minutes every Monday morning to dive into the industry's top latest news and trending topics. So go check it out on wherever you find your podcasts at Good Morning Hospitality. And you can live stream with us on Monday mornings on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and of course, YouTube. Now, I hope you enjoy this episode. If any listener today was listening, whether they have one property or 100, if you could tell them your lessons from tech, what would you want them to know?
I mean, there's no need to spend money creating your own tech if you're not a tech company. At the end of the day, right? We're not a tech company. I don't consider our peers, competitors, tech companies. We're property management companies focusing on short-term rentals. So, we're not tech. We use tech as a resource, as a tool to operate efficiently, fast, and in a convenient way for our, employees, teammates, and guests.
You're listening to Slick Talk, the hospitality podcast, a podcast for those who are in and around the hospitality industry who love, live, and breathe what they do. You can join us for candid and unscripted conversations with hospitality experts and founders as we go deeper into their personal stories while they're sharing their triumphs and trials that got them to where they are today. I'm your host, Will Slickers, and you're listening to an episode of Slick Talk, the hospitality podcast. Now, let's begin. All right, welcome back. Another Minute with Nathan Smith, who leads the US sales with Minute. And we're going to jump into what is audio ID exactly? We hear about it. I love the technology, but let's explain it a little bit more for the listeners.
So, audio ID specifically came about with our new sensor because it is weatherproof and can be used outdoors. We built a feature in that would detect and remove things like wind noise from the audio data so that you're not getting false positives. Because obviously, we want you to know when there's an actual party issue or loud noise in general that pertains to your guests. So we use machine learning to allow the sensor to know when something is wind or some other form of noise. And this is something that we will continually be improving and expanding upon over time. So if you do have false positives, let us know. And it's something that will continue to improve to determine, is this construction noise? Is this traffic noise, etc., to make sure that the alerts that you're getting are actually about noise.
I love it. You heard it here first, folks. A Minute with Minute, and now back to the episode. All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Slick Talk, the hospitality podcast. And I couldn't be more excited because I have the one and only Juan Miguel, who is the CEO and founder of Otium Rentals based in Puerto Rico. So we do a lot of guests that are in the States, but not Puerto Rico. So it's a rare occasion to go beyond the US. So Juan Miguel, my friend, how are you doing today? And welcome to the podcast.
I'm doing very fine. Thank you for the invitation, for the kind words. Long time listener every week, so it's kind of like pretty happy, pretty excited to be on the other side today.
Yeah, get you on the other side of the microphone or the headphones, however we want to phrase it, maybe.
Yeah,
Both.
maybe with a microphone this time. I'm always listening. So
Yeah, yeah. Instead, it's now a two-way conversation than a one-way. I love it.
yeah.
Well, my friend, I find your story pretty fascinating. So I want you to kind of introduce us to your background and how you got into short-term rentals, because I think you have a unique trajectory from working. I think from what I saw, you worked with Delta, Virgin, and of course, a bunch of other kind of travel companies, but then working up to now having your own short-term rental management company, which is really impressive. And we'll dive into your story with it. But kind of give us a background on how this all kind of blossomed into where you are today.
Yeah, well, so a quick run over those more than I think 12 years. So I went for school for engineering, graduated engineering in Dayton, and then went out to my first job at Delta Airlines as an engineer.
Mm.
Totally hated it. The first job, it was bad engineering. From studying it, it's very different from applying it. And so I lasted over there about 6 months. I told my boss, "Hey, I'm just not happy. How can you help me? So he gave me a job description for revenue management. So 6 months into it, I switched into revenue management, within Delta, and that's where I started, learning that. So I've been doing revenue management for my entire career, pretty much. Fast forward to much closer to today, how I got in. So I was living in San Francisco, quit my job, had some savings, and moved back to Puerto Rico. This was 2016, I believe, or so. I gotta check
Mhm.
on that. Some years back, because I wanted to buy a hotel. Always like hospitality. I like traveling. I like hotels. I like staying in hotels, and I like traveling. Who doesn't like to travel? For leisure. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, exactly. So raised some money through two private investors, an SBA 504C real estate loan, and then we option up a hotel, 56 key hotel in Condado. But then a hurricane just changed the plans. Hurricane Maria hit Puerto
Wow.
Rico, like 4 years ago, 5 years ago, can't remember, and that completely changed the trajectory of everything. After that, we were about to close 30 days when the hurricane hit. When the hurricane hit, we needed to raise about $1 million for the extra capital that we needed for this first year because of increased energy costs with gasoline for the power generation stuff. So investors were not going to put any more money, and that was it. So I spent
Mhm.
a year trying to build that up. It did not work out. I was without a job, without much money, because I drained my savings
Yeah.
through that year that was attempting that. So after Maria, we left. We spent some time in Dallas, and I was trying to see what I was gonna do next. Took some time off to kind of job search, started reading a little bit, and I applied for two jobs in New York City. One was for JetBlue. The second one was for a short-term rental operator called Domio. And so, I've already been in airlines. Domio was a little bit different, hospitality, hotel related. I wanted to get into hotels, hospitality. So, let's go. So I joined the company very early. I think we were about 15, 12 or 15 employees when I joined, scaled it up to 150 employees, then left January of 2020, right before COVID hit. And so we moved down to Puerto Rico, and we had purchased our first condo in Puerto Rico. And that is the start of what has become Otium Rentals today.
No, man, this is, quite the journey, and I kinda wanna touch back on the earlier days here really quick before we go into the Domio journey into OTM Rentals. But, Hurricane Maria, that's one, pretty impactful and kind of how your whole thinking of, like, what your life was gonna be. You're gonna go buy this hotel, you've got investors, you've gotten so far down the line, and to have that pretty much taken away out of an act of God, basically. What was going through your head before you moved to San Francisco and kind of was just like, all right, well, I have to start over. What was going through your head during that time?
I mean, there's two ways to look at it, right? One is, maybe I dodge a bullet, in which it
Yeah.
would have been much harder to start operating, first hotel right at that time. Not that sometimes experience, tells enough, but I didn't have much experience, right? Running a hospitality company. And so from that side, maybe it's something good that this came along and changed the plans, right? From the other side is it kind of sucked because I gave myself 1 year since I moved from San Francisco to Puerto Rico to do
Mhm.
that. I saved some money. I had my 401k. I got some money saved up, which it allowed me for a year not to generate any income, and see if I could
Yeah.
make this happen. And so when that happened, I was without a plan, without a job, without an idea. I was also without money. Like literally, I
Yeah.
emptied my entire savings. So moved back to Texas with my dad, gonna see what was next. And I actually started working at Starbucks for some months just to get back. And that's when I
Yeah.
applied for JetBlue and Domio. So it was a blessing, maybe in disguise, because maybe a bullet, maybe something worse would have happened. It would have been pretty tough to operate in that first year, given the circumstances. From the other side, yeah, it also sucks because you work so hard and then you almost see it through, and then it just didn't happen. So but at the end of the day, I always say that that year I learned so much. It was university, a college that there's no price to it. I learned so much from negotiations, just to sitting down and raising more money. A quick story is that this first person that I went to raise money from is one of the biggest private equity firms in Puerto Rico. I went
Mm.
to, raise money from him. That was the first pitch. And, he and I really jived. He thought I was crazy, and he actually offered me a job in one of his portfolio companies. And I'm like, actually, I'm not here for a job, but thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
appreciate that. But so yeah, I learned a lot during that year. Things that I applied today. So extremely grateful for that opportunity, even though it did not pan out.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's a great way to look at it. Either you could have dodged a bullet, but if anything, you learned a great lesson. You learned great skills that you could apply to today. So I love that. And to also touch back, you also mentioned, revenue management. You hated your first job as an engineer and going into revenue management. And you said, revenue management has been a big part of my career. I've actually probably been a massive part of your career. Kind of walk me through that. I'm curious to know just your take, maybe a question to kind of form a starting point for the conversation of, your experience of revenue management with flights going from Delta to then Virgin and other brands in the airline space to now doing revenue management from, what you guys have built in your portfolio. What are some differences or similarities maybe that you did or did not expect?
Well, I mean, it is completely different, right? To start, for example, the first 2 weeks at Delta in revenue management, you go to training and they show you, the algorithm and pretty much everything. And this
Yeah.
is way beyond my pay grade, my intelligence level. This is another ball game. They got PhDs and really smart
Wow.
people doing all this stuff. Those first 2 weeks when you learn all the stuff, which you learn it just to see what happens in the background because you don't apply anything on this. I left the office with a headache every single day because there was
Wow.
way too many numbers, there were too many formulas and algorithms left and right. It's like, I mean, what it is for? But it set up the foundation to kind of learn revenue management. Why? Because airlines created revenue management back in the
Yeah.
1970s.
Yeah.
American Airline, after the Deregulation Act, they created basically, revenue management. And if you work for American, United, or Delta, those three big airline companies, I mean, it's the perfect revenue management college. It's very different to short-term rentals. Why? Because in theory, right, as you get closer to the day of departure in airlines, the price goes up. Unfortunately, in vacation rentals, the price tends to go down. And so it makes it, a little more challenging to pay attention to your lead time and other metrics to make sure that, you don't have inventory, last minute that you're, discounting. So it has some similarities. It has some definitely, differences, right? An airplane seat, it's an airplane seat. 4A is the same as 5B. And short-term rentals is very different, right? You got property with a beach, with a pool. You got an apartment without a beach, without a pool parking. So you need to understand those things because those influence, revenue and pricing. So the core application, yeah, it's very similar, but then they diverge very greatly into how they behave and then what type of details you need to pay attention to make sure that you're, maximizing your revenue accordingly.
Yeah, definitely. And for revenue management on the airline piece, I'm kind of curious because you make a really good point on, a seat is a seat. You're really not changing outside of the destination if you can change that, but you take the same plane, point it in a different direction, you're still buying 4A or 4B or whatever the seat number is, right? Why is it such a unique thing for them to want to increase the price for that same seat as it gets closer to your day of departure than it would be the discount versus like a short-term rental? That to me makes no sense.
Supply. I mean, how
Supply.
many how
Yeah.
many short-term rentals there are? How many airline seats there are? So if you need to go right now from Nashville to New York and you need to go now,
Yeah.
there's very little seats available, right? There's probably like three airlines. There's probably like maybe three flights a day, right? It's finite, right? And
Mhm.
sometimes when you gotta go on a plane, you gotta go. And so since there's less seats and less stuff, also the industry has created itself that's kind of like the methodology, the behavior that they do. It is that way. It is also another component that most, there's a lot of people in the short-term rental industry that don't operate, professionally. There's not,
Yeah.
there's your single property host, which they know a little bit less about revenue management and
Mhm.
what's intuition, right? If I lower my price, it's gonna book, right? The chance
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
probability of booking. So and then because one or two people do that, three and four do that, and then everybody follows. So guess what? If you're revenue manager and you kind of don't dance that dance, right? You're
Yeah.
gonna be left out.
Yeah. I remember my hotel management days back in like 2018-ish. I immediately remember doing revenue management and doing all the yield management. So every day checking the rates for our studios, our 1 bedrooms, our 2 bedrooms. And then I would check my competition online. I would go on Kayak or whatever and immediately be like, all right, these mother effers are dropping their rates first, and now I'm not going to follow. And then all of a sudden I see like all of the competition in the market basically just start dropping. I'm like, damn, I have to drop my
Yeah.
rates now.
Yeah.
And if one person does it, you all basically have to do it. So
Exactly.
I want to follow you up a question here. Let's say the market does that, right? The market, someone in your competition starts dropping rates. Do you think there's still a successful rate of you filling up occupancy based on holding your ground or increasing rate? Do you think it's that, or do you think just human behavior and human instincts are like, nope, I'm going with the cheaper options first, and the cheaper options are going to be, what I book?
Yeah, I mean, it really depends, right? And what makes revenue management in the vacation rental industry is much different because, for example, if we no properties are created equal. If we were to have a property that has a pool and has beach access,
Mhm.
I'm definitely gonna hold up. Definitely gonna hold up because how many of that property with those amenities there are, right? If it's a regular
Yeah.
apartment, more of in the city, on the city center stuff, then probably is not doesn't have that many amenities that would let you command a higher price, a higher premium, or just
Yeah.
hold, right? So yeah, those are the kind of things that you got to balance, right? What properties offer what versus the other, and then see your competition around. One of our the buildings that we operate, we got 3 units.
Mhm.
For example, that's the only building in Puerto Rico short-term rental friendly that has beach access. That's the only one, and we know that there's about 100 and something, 200 short-term rentals in that building.
Mm.
So we see the market, we see how it's going, and if we have availability for that unit, for one of those 3 units in there, and we know that the pool, the beach is the amenities that people look for, we're most
Yeah.
likely going to hold, right? If it's a studio a couple of streets back, probably not hold. Probably would
Yeah.
sacrifice a little rate. At the end of the day, it's RevPAR what really matters, right? It's not ADR,
Yeah.
it's not occupancy, it's
Yeah.
RevPAR. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Just I like geeking out about revenue management stuff, so to get your take is always great. I want to go back into your story before we jump into Otium Rentals and kind of the foundation that you guys have built and created post Domio. So let's talk about the Domio days. I find this story interesting, and that we all know the how this story plays out through COVID. Domio, Lyric, Stay Alfred, many of those companies no longer here today, but you have taken that experience and you have formed your own company based off of your learnings and prior experience with hospitality and revenue management and other things. So what were the big impactful moments during your days at Domio that have carried through to Otium Rentals today?
Definitely. I mean, super, extremely grateful for those 3 years at Domio. They were extremely fun, extremely fast paced. I was blessed enough that I got really early, so I was able to see like something really tiny
Mhm.
grow very rapidly. I saw things that were done properly, and also learned things like all companies are human beings. We make mistakes and
Yeah.
so forth. So it was a great time in the industry. It still is. It was a great time to be at Domio at that time. I learned way too much, you know.
Way too
Fro
much.
yeah, I learned, way too much. I had also, the blessing also that, the founders from Domio really trusted me a lot, so they gave me ample leeway to pretty much design and operate as I see fit, and also expose me to other sides of the business, the operational side, which I never had any experience in it. And so I took all those learnings, basically, going in and out. I enjoy working, so typically, I spend 10 to 12 hours in the office, and I was just absorbing left and right, with no intention to at that moment to do anything else. I was just doing my thing, kind of learning. I was not thinking of starting a short-term rental company. I was just enjoying there, growing it. So it was pretty fun. But at the same time, I was just absorbing knowledge and ways to do stuff, and so those are the things that we're applying right here. We're applying the learnings in terms of real estate, in terms of revenue management, in terms of marketing, in terms of operations, with a slight difference in the sense that we're not BC backed, so our bank account has not many millions of dollars yet. So we operate on a more lean way that we used to at Domio. We try to outsource as much of software tech as possible, right? We
Mm,
use a
mhm.
plethora of apps.
Yeah.
PMS, Asana, Slack, you name it, and we all try to integrate it together. There's a way that you can integrate everything together. Zapier, Asana, Slack, they can all talk to each other. And so, in that sense, we're a little bit different in the sense that we don't have a tech team, and we probably don't intend to have a tech team because there's so much stuff out there that we
Yeah.
can use and instead dedicate our time to operate really well, drive good reviews, and then increase the portfolio. That was one of the main difference from here now. The other main difference that we own property. We own about 60% of the portfolio that we operate, and so in that sense, it's pretty nice for a couple of reasons. One, we participate right in the appreciation of the
Yeah.
of the real estate asset through time. Number two, we keep the inventory technically until we decide to dispose it, right? Sell it or lease it or have somebody else, take over or whatever it is that
Mhm.
we would want to do with the inventory. So those two things, make it really attractive, to own. So we own about 60%. We do a little bit of rent arbitrage, and we also manage, right? I think I've always said, and even in my Domio days, there's always, there's going to be a good balance between owning, because owning, real estate has proven throughout the years to be a really
Mhm.
good wealth accumulation vehicle. And there's some other units that you kind of don't want to own, but you kind of want to operate and make sense,
Yeah.
right? To rent them and, do rent arbitrage. And there's a subset of other property in which, you can take them because it's economical for you to operate. It just adds a little bit more revenue, a little bit more time. Now that there's a small infrastructure in place, adding units, operating more units, it's become a little bit more easier and cheaper. And so some units we would just manage because we don't want to own them, we don't want to rent them, but we'll take a chance, right? There's not much to lose when we manage them. So it's kind of a hybrid between the three. So those are the two main difference between, a VC-backed company and a small company in Puerto Rico.
Yeah. Hey, well, a small company in Puerto Rico that owns 60% of their inventory is pretty impressive, to say the least. And I want to know kind of the journey of buying your first property. What was that like when you're no longer at Domio and you're going back to Puerto Rico? You're like, I'm going to buy a freaking building. I would love
Interesting.
to. Yeah.
The first acquisition was the most interesting. I was flying back from Nashville because I was speaking at the SDR conference, the Smith and Travel conference. So I was flying back. I bought my ticket through Kiwi.com. I don't know if you bought
I've
tickets
heard,
through Kiwi.
I've heard of
Yeah.
Kiwi. I've never bought
Okay.
a ticket through,
Okay.
but yeah.
Never buy.
No. Never.
Because they match to flights sometimes with odd times, sometimes different carriers. And so I left Nashville, spent the night in Orlando and the airport floor, and then arrived in Puerto Rico the next day for my nephew's for my godson's first birthday. Oh, messed up. I landed at 8 in the morning, went out to see this apartment at 10 in the morning, which I saw through an online listing. Before I got to Puerto Rico, I already sent the offer to the broker because I just wanted to get it. It was a nice,
Yeah.
a good building. And so I sent in the offer in the airport, and I just let him know that this is my price. I'll pay you what you're asking. However, I need to see it first.
Yeah.
When landed, saw the apartment, and it was like in pretty rough shape. There's a tenant that used to live there. They kind of did not take care of the unit. I can send you a video later of how it looked
Yeah.
like it. and
Please do.
and so that was our first. We're still living in New York, working for Domio, and so we had that over here, and then we started working and remodeling, and that was our first unit. And then that lasted. Acquisition was May of 2019, and then we took almost a year kind of to fix it. But it was complete reno, gut work everywhere, electrical, everything, and we got our first reservation November of 2020. So that's when technically we started operating as a hospitality service in Puerto Rico, and then from that on we kept buying until we kind of maxed out our
Yeah.
our resources. But the good thing is that since this property's cash flow, the early ones started cash flowing pretty nice. We saved a
Yeah.
little bit, and then we kept buying a little bit more slower. Properties, they're gonna appreciate, and they're good for short-term rentals.
All right, Slick Talkers, now for another dynamic sponsored duo of the podcast. I would love to introduce you to Vintori and Safely. About Vintori, we've had Brooke Flotz on the podcast, who is a founder, multiple times, and him and his team know numbers. They know data and they know marketing. They know how to help property managers just like you scale and grow their business by adding more inventory, aka more homes, into your rental program that drive the bottom line. For all of you listeners that want to learn how to scale and grow your inventory, you can get a free digital copy of Brooke's book called From Zero to 500 Properties in 5 Years. And for an added bonus, if you would do a demo of the Vintory platform, you'll get a $50 gift card to Amazon. Now that's a sick deal. And now to touch on our friends at safely.com. Safely.com helps property managers just like you and I protecting the homes that they manage from structural damage to content damage and, of course, bodily injury. This means plates, linens, cups, couches, tables, curtains, walls, and, of course, your guests themselves are protected. And this helps you by scaling your company in order to ensure that you are retaining owners and inventory in your program. If anything is broken or if anyone is hurt, you are able to make a claim through Safely, and within 3 business days, you can get instantly paid out to replace any items and settle any claims that happen on site without having to deduct from your owner's payouts. That's why I call these guys the dynamic sponsor duo. And thank you so much for tuning into the podcast. Check out their offers in the show notes, and back to the episode. Yeah, so you use the cash flow to kind of help finance the purchase of
Yeah,
multiple units, and then
yeah,
eventually,
yeah.
yeah,
Eventually, once you get the first one and the second one and they cash flow, right? Even though most banks will not recognize short-term rental revenue just as your traditional banks, they
yeah.
will assign it a long-term, lease amount, right?
Mm.
Rent in this condo is for $2,000. So between that, right, and the fact that it's been operating for a little bit and it's generating cash, then banks look at that and then it offsets your debt, and then you can keep on going slowly
Yeah.
but surely.
Yeah, I love that. And you kind of were mentioning I'm a big fan of tech, and I think we talk a lot about tech on this podcast. And I'm curious to know, your lessons around tech from Domio to now being lean and really trying to, make sure you're not getting the fanciest toys, but you're connecting proper like software, like your property management software to Asana and Zapier and getting creative and using this to all function as one. If any listener today was listening, whether they have one property or 100, if you could tell them your lessons from tech, what would you want them to know?
I mean, there's no need to spend money creating your own tech if you're not a tech company. At the end of the day, right? We're not a tech company. I don't consider our peers, competitors, tech companies. We're property management companies focusing on short-term rentals. So, we're not tech. We use tech as a resource, as a tool to operate efficiently, fast, and in a convenient way for our, employees, teammates, and guests. So, there's plenty of stuff out there, right? It's not the fanciest, like you'd say. Some a lot of them are free. We use a few of them still in the free version. Some of them we've outgrown them, so we had to pay for them. But everything is connected. Our communication center is Slack. Asana is connected to Slack. Airtable is connected to Slack. When there's a guest request, that goes into Slack. When there's a maintenance request, that goes over there. I mean, everything, the reservations, cancellations, everything goes to there. Purchase order forms. So between Asana, Airtable, Google, it's a great tool. PMS, Hostfully, all those, we're able to kind of deliver the same experience or similar experience to other peers that have apps and in-house tech and in-house engineering teams and stuff. So we're able to do that, maybe not the fanciest way, but it's definitely cost effective for sure.
Well, cost effective, and it sounds like it's pretty streamlined. So if anything happens, anyone in your team just has to go on Slack and they can see it within a dedicated channel or something.
Pretty
It
much.
doesn't sound like there's a lot of manual manpower.
No, I mean we got our hospitality team, which takes care of communications whenever there's a guest request that goes into Asana, and from Asana it just flies by itself, flows into Slack. Obviously, if a picture is uploaded, but then we go in, kind of report, take pictures, it's completed. Next, then we can move in. We do that for maintenance. We do that for guest request, and we
Wow.
still use the Asana free version,
Oh,
for
wow.
that. Yeah,
Impressive.
yeah, we're still holding, still holding there.
Anyone that's on don't listen to
Uh,
this part right
don't,
here.
don't, don't. It's a great product. It's a great product, and I know we'll pay for it someday. But so far, it's been okay on the free version.
I love it. Was like, man, I gotta learn how you're still on the free version. I have a team of like 5 for our podcast network, and I have to pay for every damn seat. I'm like, ah, I love it. But no, it's great. I think it's nice just because, and you and I talked about this yesterday on our pre-chat going into, not that VC-backed companies are bad. We've had plenty of founders who have raised capital on this show. I'm about to raise capital, not from maybe VCs, but still raising capital. And sometimes I think we could over glorify fundraising, especially in our industry, that, X, Y, and Z company raise 25 million or whatever the amount is, right? And we can glorify that. But just because it's venture backed doesn't mean it's one, recession proof, COVID proof. We're still sustained or still exposed to any event in the world, just like everybody else. And so to hear your story, saying like, you can have one, you could buy properties and have a great mix of arbitrage ownership and co-hosting or management. But, not that you need the money from a VC to kind of help accelerate your company. So I would love for you to share maybe some insight just with your guys' business on, your inventory, your growth trajectory, and how you guys are planning on, scaling within your means and still remaining sustainable and profitable and all the things we've talked about before.
Yeah, I mean, raising money, I'm with you. It's not bad. What's bad maybe is the comfort that it brings having a few million
Yeah.
dollars in the bank account, right? It's different if having 100K in the bank account versus having $10 million. Obviously, the
Yeah.
runway is different. You're more flexible, right? Which is nice, right? It's nice to have that flexibility and be able to do a lot of
Yeah.
stuff. But at the same token, right? If you're trying to grow a business that makes a profit at the end of the day, that's not just throwing money or creating an app or just creating it just to say that
Yeah.
that we have an app. If there's no need to do that, then why spend the money, right there? We
Yeah.
could raise some money and have $10 million in the bank account, and probably I will not build a guest app. I mean,
Yeah.
because how many people are going to use it? Yeah, so probably won't. How we've been growing, cent by cent. We literally watch how every single cent that goes out, and we need to make sure how that cent plus one is going to come back. And so, everything that we do, we just sit down and excel it and model it and see where our resources are, see the payback period, not only the payback period, but then that payback period, how much and how long is it going to take to kind of build the next nest egg to kind of jump to that next property, which is also difficult because not having all the resources at the same time. Then it's when a property does you know knocks on your door, it's like, oh,
Yeah.
you gotta move some stuff around and see what you want to do, look for alternate financing and stuff, which there's some vehicles out there, the SCR's loan and other kind of more niche private equity banks that kind of also are interested in this space. How we intend to grow the same way we've been growing. We started with one property. Today we are operating 28, about to put 29 today. We have another 23 properties that we're fixing, right now. Individual properties that we're fixing. Hopefully, they will come in the next, 60 to 90 days. And to be really honest, we've been fortunate in the sense that we don't market ourselves. We don't market to owners. We don't acquire owners. The owners that have come to us have been either from word of mouth or friends of friends, and that's been done intentionally because we've been blessed that we've always had work and new properties, and people knock on your door and say, hey, get this opportunity, can you help me?
Yeah.
So we have not done anything, which is wrong. Also, it's wrong. You need to.
If it's naturally coming in, I don't think that's wrong. I think,
Well,
there will be a day where you'll probably need some outbound
yeah,
marketing, but
yeah,
hey, if it's naturally coming in,
exactly,
let that
yeah.
train ride. Let that train ride.
Exactly. So we're
Yeah.
we're doing just that. Also, we've done it intentionally because we want to make sure that we lay the foundations really well. It makes
100%.
no sense for us to now get 100 properties and we'll be just scrambling, right?
Yeah.
So because this has been designed for the long run, right? We want this to you know, I don't know the future we're living today, just April 11th. That's what only
Mm.
matters. But we try to design this for to last,
Yeah.
and so But by that we need to have the foundations, properly, have our operations really sync, have a great team, which our team it's full of rock stars. You need a good team, you need good operations. Between those two, then all the other things kind of fall into, the marketing falls, or revenue management falls. New properties will come in. So those foundations are extremely key, extremely key. If you have those really set up, and that's what we've been working the past few years. We want to make sure that we can handle 100, 200, 5,000 properties, at the end of the day. We got intentions in moving beyond Puerto Rico, moving to the Dominican Republic, Panama, going back to the States where we used to own property and did short-term rental as well. So we're trying to, you know, design it that as best as we can, so that we can, okay, now let's just, let's just grow a little bit
Yeah.
quicker.
Yeah, I love that. And I got 2 questions for you kind of following up on this. One, what's the Puerto Rico market like for short-term rentals? Is there a lot of competition, or is the market, and maybe you don't want people to know this, but is the market ripe for this type of accommodation and lodging for travelers?
So, we moved to Puerto Rico for two reasons. One, we're from Puerto Rico, right? Number
Yeah.
one, and actually three. We're from Puerto Rico. The weather is quite nice,
Yes.
year round, and you get beaches and stuff, so it's really nice. But then
Well, don't
third,
tell me about beaches right now, because I might book a ticket, just fly out there and just say, "Screw it,
oh,
I'm going. I'm
it's
leaving Denver."
it's like 90 degrees right now. It's like, why am I sitting on a desk? But this is life today. But yeah, we moved out to Puerto Rico. We're obviously from Puerto Rico. The weather and beach, fantastic. We're from here, but then Puerto Rico, for the last ten years, has averaged about 15,000 hotel rooms.
Hmm.
So the hotel inventory has been pretty flat
Yeah.
throughout those years. Come in short-term rentals, which there's always been, but obviously Airbnb kind of
Yeah.
popularized it, right? There's always been, short-term rentals. We moved back because we saw the opportunity in this niche. At the same time, Puerto Rico was creating a DMO, destination marketing organization,
Mhm.
and they were, assigning public funds to that private entity to make sure that they can market Puerto Rico. So
Yeah.
that's a good thing to have, because they can do
Mhm.
the market for you. They want to make, they're gonna bring those planes full. So between that and some real estate opportunities that we saw, it's like, we got a little bit of help with the marketing. Puerto Rico, who wouldn't want to go to Puerto Rico for a weekend
Yeah.
and spend it on the beach? There's, good prices. At that time, prices have, appraised a lot. So we went down. Now competition has, skyrocketed. After COVID, if you see the graph for active listings in the San Juan area, it's just a climb up. Like,
Mm.
there's no slowdown, which is fine, right? It makes it a little bit harder revenue wise, because it
Yeah.
there's more supply and demand. We all know that what happens to prices, but it's good for the entire industry. The bigger the industry, the better it is for all of us, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, we have the hotel lobby and all the same stories that you see in every corner around the world. That's affordable housing, etc. The same thing is happening over here. Is it a good market? It's a great market. I mean, it's a great market. There's some cool tax incentives also that have attracted a lot of investment to Puerto Rico. So it is a good market to be in. There's opportunities. Prices are a little bit higher, but at the end of the day, it's like, when I hear people say, "Oh, mortgage rates have gone up 3, 4% from what they used to be," it's like, "Oh, well, yeah, they used to be 3, now they're 6. I mean, can you cover it?" Yes. Okay. Well, I mean, still do it. So yeah, it's just, math wise, it's a great place to invest at the end of the day.
Is it true? I can't remember if this was Puerto Rico, if it was Costa Rica, somewhere else. You have to be a Puerto Rican citizen in order to get a short-term rental license in order
N-
to have a property management company?
No, no,
Okay.
there's no restrictions into who can have property management, vacation rentals or
Gotcha.
investment properties. There's no limitation into who can manage short-term rentals or property.
Gotcha. So is regulations becoming a more of a thing now with the market booming, or do you guys see regulations still kind of
Yeah.
being a little bit behind?
No, I will. There's some bills in the assembly here in the local assembly. There's some bills to regulate them. We're
Yeah.
more than happy to get us regulated, right?
Yeah.
Right now, you're gonna make sure you pay your 7% room tax, what gets charged to the guests. You just pass it through, and then just send your tax returns every
Yeah.
month for the. And so basic stuff. There's some chit chat about having more restrictions and to having regulated at the state level, which is fine. I think it's just adds
Yeah.
professionally and credibility to to the space. So yeah, we're
Yeah.
more than welcome for more regulation as long as it's that makes sense, right? Not you know
Yeah, it's not
yeah
something completely crazy, which a
yeah
lot of governments will try to do.
yeah.
Um, yeah, without understanding what the actual industry does. But no, it's really good. And so I have two last questions for you. One, when you hear the phrase or the term sustainable business, what does that mean to you? And then one thing we've been doing on the show, I don't know if you've been listening to any of the episodes this year, but we ask a guest prior to recording with the current guest to ask a question without telling them who you are. And so I have a question from the previous guest before you to ask in a little
Okay,
bit. So
nice.
I would love to know though for you, just a sustainable business, what does that mean to you and how do you apply it?
It is. I don't know if I should say frugal. But I'll add that word. We're frugal. I mean, if there's something that we'll need, we'll get it. It doesn't matter how much it will cost, given the parameters, right? But it is, building a sustainable business. Just it's like doing exercise. It's like keeping your body healthy, eating the
Yeah.
right stuff, and doing your exercise so you can last. If you want to do it for 10, 20, 30, 50 years, you want to sell it someday. The same with your body, right? If you intend to live for 100 years, make sure you eat well and exercise and meditate and all that stuff. So yeah, I mean it's about being frugal, not get overextended, don't get too fancy or too aggressive, and just let day by day, just thinking there's a tomorrow, but make sure that each decision that you take, there's some thought behind it, right? That you're taking that decision, for the long term. There's processes in here that I was talking to one of our teammates, yesterday, that we're trying to design a process. We could go the fastest way and do it this way, or take a little more time and see how we could do it a different way. Because whenever there's double the inventory, etc., then it'll become a problem. So every step, every processes that we think or design, it's been designed to, like, hey, can we is this going to facilitate us when we are much bigger? Is it going to pose a problem? So it's a part of being sustainable. And the cool part of building a sustainable business, that I think you learn a lot as well, because there's some decisions that you need to take and make, and things that you need to delay in order to make sure that you're gonna see it through, especially in the growing phase. Because right, at the beginning, when you get a property, you're sinking money into that property left and right. I mean,
Yeah.
every single property, it's 100K at least, between down payment and fixing and furniture, and 150K, and that's a lot of money. And so, since we don't have millions, we got to make sure that those instances that we put that money into work, that we're you know putting it to work for the long term.
Yeah. No, I love that. That's such a great I love the analogy of exercise, eating healthy, meditating. It's the same thing. It's practice, takes work. It's not just something you can like, oh, we have a sustainable business because
Yeah.
we thought it. It's yeah, it's you're practicing and living it out. I love that. All right. So the question from our last guest, which was Josiah McKenzie, who has hoteloperations.com. It's a great resource for hoteliers and even short-term rental operators. But his question to you, without knowing I was going to interview you, he just thought of this question without knowing. His question goes, what's giving you life? What has made you laugh recently that fulfills your day to day?
Just make me laugh. Well, sometimes I pinch myself, right? Maybe I dreamt, it was a dream of mine. I've been in this situation, 5, 6, 10 years ago. I've always, since I was a little kid, right? I've always thought, because my parents have always been business owners. I've always seen that, so that's kind of how I'm wired. So I've always said, man, I gotta be like my mom and dad, running their own
Yeah.
show and stuff. And so, you know, what makes me laugh is just sometimes just thinking about those times when, oh, when is it gonna happen, or how, or when. It's like, and now that we're here, it's like, oh, it's real. At the same token, there's 50% that I already knew, 50% that I did not know. That's like, whoa, this roller
Yeah.
coaster up and down, like, the work, the emotions. It's like, what are you gonna do? Suddenly you're responsible for for your team. You get a little bit of payroll and stuff. And
Yeah.
so it's like, whoa, it is for real. And that makes me laugh at the end of the day. It brings me a smile because it's from something I'm a big fan of working every single day, doing all the tasks and going and keep getting better all to that's the result of getting today. So
Yeah.
that brings me joy. And also I try to meditate pretty much every day, every morning. That comes from my dad, and that brings me joy as well because I got a long list of things that I need to do day in
Mm.
day out. That 24 hours
Yeah.
is not enough time. And
Yeah.
so sometimes, like, I'm a human being, this is flesh right here.
Yeah.
Sometimes it is too much. Sometimes it is too much, and it could get out of control. So I like to meditate in the morning because it kind of like, I wake up and I'm a very hyper person.
Yeah.
I wake up at 6 and I just go. I don't spend any time in bed. My girlfriend, just hates that. It's like, hey, how can you stay for a single day? It's like, I open my eyes and I go.
Yeah.
So I sit down in my car and I meditate so I can just bring myself down, and then okay, let's go on. And that brings me joy as well. It brings me a big smile. Suddenly yeah, things change, and it's something that I try to do every day to bring joy, to bring that laugh, to make sure that all this becomes manageable.
I love it. I love it. It's perfect. Kind of what I've been super excited about, just like regulating emotions. And yeah, I'm like you. I wake up at 5 or 6 or whatever time in the morning, and I'm go. I drink some water. I have some coffee. I'm hitting everything, and then by the time my team gets onto Slack, they're like, "Wow, everything's basically done. What the heck?" But not basically done. There's still a lot to do. But yeah, I'm very much like you. So I love that. Just kind of like regulating yourself in the morning, starting off on a really good foot is really good. So without knowing who's going to be the guest after you, what's the question you would want to ask them and hear their answer on?
Wolf. What do you do when adversity just hits your door, and it hits your door day after day after day, and it's a little bit constant sometimes? What do you do?
What do you do when adversity hits your door? I like it. I like it. That's a great question. Well, you'll have to tune into the next episode after
I
yours
will.
in order to hear the answer. But it has been so good to chat with you and to hear your story and to kind of maybe take a little peek under the hood of what you've been building. I've been a fan of yours as well. I've heard of Otium Rentals, I think maybe a year and a half or 2 years ago almost. So probably when you guys were pretty new and fresh, but just really love hearing your story and how you're building this and how you're approaching the industry and the practice of short-term rentals and hospitality in your business. So I just want to say thank you for being a guest on the show. If any listener wants to find more information out about you, where do they go?
Otiumrentals.com website. It's the best way to contact us through there. You got social media channels in there, but yeah, best way, the website, otiumrentals.com.
I love it. I love it. Well, we'll make sure everything is included in the show notes, just like we always do. But if you're a listener or a watcher, viewer of the live recording, then thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you like and subscribe everything Juan Miguel and Otium Rentals and what they're doing in Puerto Rico as they continue to grow and expand and lead the way as an example of what to do as a short-term rental operator in our industry. So, Juan Miguel, thank you again so much, my friend, and we
Thank
will
you.
talk again soon.
Take care, Will.
Thank you so much for listening, and thank you to our show partners for making Slick Talk, the hospitality podcast, possible. We hope you enjoyed the show, and we would love to connect with you outside of the podcast. So you can follow us on all of our social media channels for daily hospitality content, or find us on slicktalkthepodcast.com. And don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe so you never miss an episode. I'm your host, Will Slickers, and we will see you guys all again next week.